And welcome to today's discussion. We are going to get started here in just a second, but we're going to let the stragglers join in, make sure they've all got their coffee, and we'll get started here in just a second. But thank you all for joining. While we wait for those stragglers, go ahead and pop into the attendee chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. One of the things that I love about these webinars is that we get to, share our insights and experiences with so many people all over the world. And I'm always curious to see who the furthest person is that's tuning in. It's always an interesting thing to find out during these webinars. So let me know where you guys are tuning in from. I am broadcasting out of Austin, Texas. And if anyone else is in Austin, Texas, let me know on LinkedIn. Maybe we can go grab a coffee or something. We can talk online reputation and, figuring out how to modernize your practice. Awesome. So let's see where we are right now. All right. Got a couple trickling in. Awesome. Okay. I think we'll go ahead and give it just a few more seconds. I don't want anybody to miss this. And, also, if you are not able to stay for the entire time, don't worry. We will be able to send you a link to the recording afterwards. But you know what? Let's go ahead and get started. It looks like we've got some people in here. Yeah, awesome. Cool. All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's discussion, Modernize Your Practice with a Complete Digital Experience from Birdeye. My name is Justin Meredith, and I'm one of the digital marketing specialists here at Birdeye, and we have an amazing discussion lined up for you today. We're going to be covering all kinds of different topics and pain points that are afflicting the dental industry, and if you're in the healthcare industry, this should also apply to you as well. But we have a lot to get to. And before we jump into it and I introduce to you guys today's guest, let's quickly go over the webinar dashboard that you guys are currently on. And so your webinar dashboard is full of really cool and helpful tools and windows that you can use to get the most out of today's discussion. You can move these around, resize them, and even minimize the ones you don't want to have open just so they're not distracting or anything like that. But I do highly recommend checking out the related content window that's on the top right of your screen. We've provided some really helpful additional resources for you to take a look at to help you further, to help go along with today's discussion. Now, you'll also have the chance to ask any questions you might have. And to do that, please submit your questions to the Q&A window or the question window. And we'll have one of our experts behind the scenes answer the questions. And then we'll also be sure to address them during the Q&A session at the end. But also be sure not to submit a question in the attendee chat. Sometimes when the chat is super active, we may miss the question and we don't want to do that. But other than that, we hope you guys enjoy the discussion. Feel free to ask your questions. We want to hear from you. We want to provide as much value as we can for you today. So don't be shy. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce today's guest speaker. And that is Dr. Leonard Tao. I know him as the general manager of the dental vertical here for us at Birdeye. And up until recently, he has also been helping patients brighten their smiles as the owner of the Pennsylvania Center for Dental Excellence. But that was up until his recent retirement from clinical dentistry in late last year in December 2022. Well, thank you, Len, so much for joining. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to spend 45 minutes with you talking about how to modernize your dental practice. I appreciate you inviting me to speak to the audience.
Well, I'm more appreciative that you're here. People, I've done a bunch of these webinars. People have heard me talk, but I'm really interested in hearing about your experiences and your insights on today's topic. But since this is the first time that you've done a webinar with us here, can you share with us a little bit about your experience within the dental industry?
Sure. I was a practicing dentist for 23 years. I graduated Tufts in 1999, spent 15 years as the owner of my own practice. As you mentioned, the Pennsylvania Center for Dental Excellence. I purchased it in 2007. And then over the next few years, solely focused on practicing dentistry. In 2014, I was lucky enough to join Birdeye. So I've been with Birdeye for 9 years. I run their dental division. So if you have questions about the dental industry, people want to sign up for Birdeye, They ultimately get funneled to me, and I am responsible for helping them learn about the platform. I teach marketing and reputation to dentists all over the country, so I'm on the road a significant amount of time, usually about 35 to 40 presentations a year, educating audiences on how important reviews and ranking and all those other tools are to grow their dental practice. And as you mentioned, in December of 2022, I retired from clinical dentistry. I reside in South Florida now. We moved from Philadelphia to South Florida, and just living a different lifestyle right now. So really enjoying things, enjoying a lot of more free time, but still really, excited to help Birdeye go to the next level.
Awesome. And enjoying that warmer weather, I'm sure.
Significant.
I'm sure South Florida is a little bit warmer than Philadelphia. And so with all of that experience, I feel like you've been around the block when it comes to the trial and error of trying to grow a practice, trying to expand your reach and bring in new patients. And I'm sure there were a lot of successes and a lot of failures, as it normally goes whenever you're trying to build up your own business or specifically your own dental practice. So within that experience that you've had, what are some of those major pain points that you experienced, or maybe that you have known, maybe from other practices, but maybe that you've seen, that really seem to stop a practice in its tracks whenever they're trying to grow and expand? What are some of those pain points?
I mean, that's a great question. And as many of the people listening know, running a dental office is a very difficult thing to do. You have to do the dentistry, you have to manage the office. You're like a mini CEO of a small business, and it is difficult. And there are a lot of major pain points when you run a business. You have the first one highlighted here, acquiring new patients. New patients are the lifeblood of the practice. If you can't generate new patients, practice is just not going to grow. It's very hard to earn more money if you aren't generating those new patients. So I think the first pain point that we'll discuss in a little bit more detail is the acquisition of new patients and how Birdeye specifically helps with that.
Awesome. And so when you are acquiring new patients, we have a stat here that says 86% of patients check online reviews when selecting their new dentist. Would you say, the reason for, the struggle when it comes to acquiring new patients would be kind of a lack of visibility, and trying to, some practices may struggle with just getting themselves, visible and putting themselves either online or, through advertising or anything like that? Would you say that's probably where probably the biggest struggle comes from, is trying to get that visibility?
Well, visibility is one thing, but also knowing that how else the marketing that you're doing, you're going to be spending a lot of money on marketing, and I want to go into that a little bit more, but practices have to spend money to acquire new patients. Mm-hmm. There's lots of ways to market your practice. You can do AdWords, you can do Facebook ads, you can do Google ads, as I mentioned, you can do SEO. All of that is great, and all of those bring in new patients, but only if you have that foundation set up first. And that's specifically how we help with this, is that we help acquire new patients because we're doing the foundational things that every new practice needs. So awesome. That to me is pain point number one. Awesome. Pain point number two is a complicated scheduling process, making it difficult for patients to schedule an appointment. And we'll go, obviously we're going to go into each of these things more about how Birdeye can help, but I want to relay to you, I told you about this yesterday, that my family just went through. So we were looking to contact a plastic surgeon to have some procedures done, and we reached out to 4 different plastic surgeons. So the first one we found actually had an online booking system, appointment for an online appointment. It was a consultation that was scheduled a few weeks ahead of time. The practice immediately reached out to us, and it was great. The 3 other people had a request on their website to schedule an appointment, but it was a request. It didn't actually book an appointment with the person. And sometimes we got an email that said someone will follow up with us in 24 hours. Other ones, there was no message at all. But we requested to be contacted by those other practices. And lo and behold, it is now 3 days later. It's Thursday the 6th. And because we did this on Monday, and we've only heard from one of those other offices. I had to call the other 2 practices and find out why they hadn't reached out. So I think making it difficult, making it harder for your patients to actually schedule an appointment is definitely a pain point in this day and age. I think every practice should have some sort of scheduling product that can integrate with the practice management software, the EMR if it's healthcare, and make it very easy for your patients to be able to schedule, because they don't want to talk on the phone half the time.
Yeah, and that makes total sense, because I mean, if especially in the dental industry, if you're a new person who just moved into a city and you're trying to set an appointment, you don't really know what practices are in that area. You don't really know much about it, and so a lot of that's going to, a lot of where you end up going is going to depend on who will book you first. And so if you are slow to scheduling an appointment with a patient or getting back to them, kind of like what you were just saying, you could lose out on a lot of potential new patients, because the other practice down the street or the competition could have something set up that could get them scheduled right away, and they wouldn't have to wait for a call back.
So you know what, I want to tell another story real quick. I love telling stories about what happened in my own practice. I was one of the very first practices in the industry to have a chat service on the website. Okay. Now, this is before AI chat. This was a live chat agent who was chatting for the practice. And I still remember it was like in 2014, and I was in Calgary and Vancouver doing seminars for Invisalign. And I got a chat archive, because they sent me the chat archive from somebody saying, I've contacted many offices. All of my teeth are loose. I need to make an appointment as soon as possible. So while I was in Vancouver at the time, I contacted the patient via phone. And she said, you are literally the first practice to be able to be accessible after hours. I really appreciate it. I want to come in. All of my teeth are loose. She ended up coming in when I came back to the practice the next, I think it was Monday, and she ended up spending $30,000 in my practice. But it was making yourself accessible to patients, which I think is a very difficult thing nowadays for practices to do. You have to make it easy to communicate with your patients.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so moving on to the next one is, and this kind of is similar to what you were just talking about, is those communication issues. So where does this pain point stem from? What does it end up resulting in?
So, patients need to be communicative with the practice, or the practice needs to communicate with the patients. So in this case, you have to make it easy, in this case, to communicate with patients of your record. So confirmations, reminders, reactivating them, reminding them they have, in this case, hygiene appointment or recare appointment that they're due for it. You have to make it easy for you to communicate with patients in their preferred communication method. Most patients don't want to pick up the phone. Calling to confirm appointment just doesn't work anymore. You have to have the digital technology to be able to communicate with them via text or email or whatever method they want to be. So that is a huge, huge issue, is having a way to make it easy for your patients to talk to the practice rather than on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, seeing what we're looking at here on the slide is 80% of patients say they prefer to use digital communications with their healthcare provider, and approximately 20% of appointments result in a no-show or last-minute communication or last-minute cancellation. Those are really avoidable problems if you have a streamlined communication process.
Cancellations can can cause huge problems each and every day. Last minute cancellations and even no-shows can ruin the mojo in the practice and really put a staff on alert that they need to change the way they're communicating with these things. The best thing is to send a text message 1 hour prior to the appointment, reminding them that they have an appointment, because a lot of people forget that same day. So you have to just use technology that makes it easy to alert patients that they're due for appointments, overdue for appointments, they have an appointment coming up and they need to confirm it.
All right, let's keep moving to our next one, and that's the complicated payment process. Seeing as, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'll let you speak to this one.
I was going to say that, we all have large account receivables. We have money coming in. I happen to have been very fortunate. I was a fee-for-service practice. I did not accept insurance as a form of primary payments. So my collection rate was usually very high. A lot of practices are relying on the patient to pay their copay, as well as the insurance to pay for the brunt of the treatment that's being done. Most practices should do a fairly good job of estimating what the patient is supposed to owe, but many times the practice underestimates what the patient is going to have to pay. So most practices, I'm going to say most here, are used to either sending a statement via mail and hoping that the patient opens the letter up they get, hoping they send a check in the mail. They make it very difficult to make payments, especially after the insurance has already made their initial payment. So having a complicated payment process makes it very difficult for a practice to keep up with the accounts receivable in a timely fashion.
Yeah, and I mean, when it comes to the complicated, that payment process, a big part of that goes back, a lot of this goes back to communication and being able to get those invoices to those patients quickly, and so that you can get paid quickly. Because that's really, what it is part of that. You can't grow without, patients paying you. And so our last pain point of the day that we're going to discuss before we jump into how to solve them, and that is retaining current patients. And so where do dental practices lose their patients, and why is it so important to keep retaining them?
So you're spending so much money to acquire the new patients, okay? If you don't retain them, you've wasted a lot of money that you spent to acquire them. And practices that do not shut the back doors, we like to say, close the back door so patients don't leave, will notice that the practice is heading in the wrong direction. It's actually heading down. So it's so important to retain. It's much easier to keep current patients than it really is to acquire new patients. So you want to lock that back door or shut that back door. If not, you're going to suffer the consequences of having a declining practice. So that's a huge pain point for practices, that they're spending all this money and they're not retaining what they have. So we have a lot of ways that we can help the patients be retained in the practice, or want to come back after being away for a period of time as well.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine when you struggle to retain current patients, that just puts so much more pressure on having to acquire new ones to make up for that loss, which, like you said, it costs more money, and it makes it less consistent, and it makes it a lot harder to manage, year over year. And so now let's go back through these pain points. We're going to go through each one and talk about the best way that you can overcome them. And so while we go through this, if you're in the audience right now watching us, feel free to drop in the attendee chat any, maybe similar experiences or stories or other pain points that maybe you've been facing, and maybe submit a question in the Q&A to ask us some advice on that. And we'll make sure to get to that. But definitely feel free to drop in and share your experience with us. We want to hear from you. And so let's go ahead and get started on that. And so going back up to the first one, which is acquiring new patients, what would you suggest to a practice on how to get started, when they're with this? How would they implement a solution to, this pain point?
So as I mentioned when I talked about this in the first place, there are many ways to acquire new patients. You can spend money on search engine optimization. That's called SEO. Okay. You can do paid advertising. It's also called pay per click. Google AdWords. You can use that method. You can do retargeting ads. You can do social media ads. There's many ways to attract new patients, and they all work. Okay. But if you do not have a consistent flow of reviews, you don't have a proper listings, Google doesn't trust the business. And if you don't have reviews, you're not going to be the person that's picked. You have such competition, and you need to stand out in a specific way. So by implementing a review, in this case, generation service, that it will only help with the foundation that you're setting up, be able to spend even more money on marketing your practice, which then will result in more new patients coming in because you've invested in the marketing that you're doing. So spending $500 a month versus $3,000 a month will have a much greater effect when you spend more if you have the reviews behind you. So the reviews are kind of the foundation to being able to market the practice. And I always like to say, if you don't have a consistent flow of reviews, stop marketing your practice, you're wasting your money. And I truly believe that. So that's one of the ways that we can help, is that we have built a service that makes it very easy for your patients to click on a link they're going to get either by email or text, the digital method. Okay. Once they click on the message that they get, it asks them whether they had a good experience or a bad one. If they had a great experience, you want to hit a green button. If you had a bad experience, they want to hit the red button. If they hit the red button, it goes directly back to practice as feedback. It doesn't go online. If they hit one of the green buttons, we automatically allow the patient to write the review on Google directly through our platform. So we have, and this has been our core product for literally since I've been at the company for 9 years now. We have a system that makes it very easy for your patients to write reviews directly on Google and Facebook through our platform. That will allow you to then spend money on marketing, which will increase significantly the number of new patients who are coming in the practice.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on about how that is the foundation. Because if you think about when you receive a review, it's there. It's going to be on your Google Business profile forever. People will see that and read it, and it'll go, it'll attribute to your star rating and help with your overall online presence. Whereas if you were to, implement a paid ad campaign, that only lasts as long as you're paying for that ad campaign. As soon as you stop paying, those ads are gone. And so, with that, with the strong online presence, with not even just your reviews, but your entire Google Business profile and all the different listings that people could be leaving reviews of your practice online, being able to have that foundation set up just does a massive service for your online reputation. Because, like I said, it's there. It's part of your reputation. It doesn't end whenever you just stop paying. Those reviews are there to stay, and people see that. And it even helps your ads, because when people see those ads and they click on your business, they see those reviews and like, okay, they are a really reputable and trusted practice. And so, setting up that foundation is massively important. And so now,
and that's what, hold on 1 second. And just to make it very clear, if you have a few reviews or you even have bad reviews, you do not want to be spending any money on advertising that, because you're basically advertising your bad reputation. So I love how I see practices on Yelp and they're paying, and they're like one of the featured businesses on Yelp, and they have 12 reviews, 3.2 stars. They are literally advertising they have a bad reputation. So you do not want to be doing that. Okay. Do you want me to talk about the other way that we can acquire new patients through our referral product, or did you want to say something in between?
Let's save that for after we go through these pain points, and then we'll have a moment where we can really dig into how Birdeye just makes it easy. And that's just kind of plain and simple. It just makes it a lot easier. And so moving on to the next one, and that complicated scheduling process, we talked about it earlier. And how you have to have something available 24/7, and online, that someone can, they don't have to try to book it through, during business hours, or try to make a physical phone call. Can you speak more to that and about why this is so important to have this kind of system in place, especially in 2023?
I have used an online booking system I did use an online booking system for my practice for literally 6 or 7 years. I was a very early adopter. I love the ability for a younger patient to go online after hours, not have to speak to anybody, go and schedule an appointment. I was hoping and praying that Birdeye would implement a software like this, because I think it's a huge boost to the practice. Now, most practices, when I bring up this point, is they don't want to give up control of their schedule, and I totally understand that. But people who are watching this, I'm not talking about having someone schedule a crown or a filling or a root canal, nothing like that. You're not going to let anybody make those long appointments online. What we want to be able to do is we want to make it very easy for someone who has an emergency, who wants a consultation, who wants a cleaning, to be able to go online, go to your website, click on the book an appointment link, select which provider they want if you have multiple providers, and the procedure they want to have. Again, consults, emergencies, and cleanings, whether it's new or existing patients. And they can go into your practice management software. We integrate with a whole slew of them: Dentrix Ascend, Planet DDS, EagleSoft, Open Dental, and the list goes on, and literally find a time in the schedule that you have pre-selected that's available to someone booking online. They fill out all the information that's needed: their name, their date of birth, their gender, what they want to come in for, any comments, what insurance they have, if any. And simply by clicking submit, it will go into the practice management software. It will book that appointment. It will alert the patient that they did book an appointment. It will alert the practice that an appointment was booked. And then the practice will do the normal follow-up, whether it's welcoming them to the practice, sending them forms. That's how the system like this works. So when Birdeye released in December their scheduling product, this was an amazing opportunity that has really taken practices to the next level. The office that I purchased, or that I sold, and was purchased from me, is now using Birdeye's appointments and has had a slew of appointments made through our booking product. So I highly recommend that people listening and viewing this definitely take a look at our appointment scheduling platform.
Would you say, those types of patients who are looking for those, those cleanings, these emergencies, those kind of one-off, more of those kind of in the moment type of appointments. Would you say that's where a lot of new patients come from? Because they're like, I chipped a tooth, or I need a cleaning, I got a big event, and I just need to find somebody to help me out right now. And so they're probably, otherwise they probably would have a dentist that they would go to. So I think this, and having that smooth scheduling system really does make it easy. And kind of like what we were saying earlier is, if you're slow to that, they could go somewhere else. And so, you don't want to miss any opportunity to bring in those patients because your scheduling system is complex and slow.
Right. You don't want to, I told you, I just explained to you the problem I went through trying to book an appointment with a plastic surgeon. It was very difficult. We haven't heard back from everybody that we had reached out to. You need to make it easy, and you need to be responsive. One other thing I wanted to bring up, because I know that people are saying, well, how do you avoid cancellations when patients are booking online appointments? And if you just let the system run by itself, I do think that you're going to have an appointment cancellation issue where new patients won't show for their appointments. So what the recommendation I've always made to these practices who use this type of service is that once the appointment's made, they actually call the patient, welcome them to the office. In my case, we required our forms to be filled out ahead of time, which was the one thing that did confirm the appointment, because throughout the history, patients who filled out their information showed for their appointments. Patients that did not fill out their forms didn't show. So by making the forms being filled out a requirement to these patients who are booking online, you significantly decrease the no-show rate.
Yeah. And I think that makes sense, because if they're just booking a time online, it's really easy to forget that you did that. Because if you have a really good process that only takes a few seconds, that's a few seconds for them to not remember. And, like I'm the same way. Like I'll book, like a haircut or even a dental cleaning, and I'll completely forget that I even did that. And I have to either have it on my calendar, or I'm almost relying on, that kind of communication from the practice to remind me. And so that actually, we can move on to the next one, and that's the communication issues. And so how would you recommend solving this pain point?
Goes back to my original comments that you need to make it easy to communicate with your patients. What Birdeye has an integrated inbox that combines various features in it. So patients can text you in the office. They can email you through the Birdeye inbox. We have a chat service as well. So when a patient goes on the website, whether it's new or existing, when they send a chat in, it automatically goes into their file within the Birdeye inbox. We also have Instagram and Facebook. So if you do a lot of paid advertising, those messages will also go into the inbox as well, and Google My Business or Google Business Profile messages as well. So having this one way or one place where all the communications are taking place, you don't have to check Facebook. You don't have to check Instagram. You don't have to go into your email. Everything comes into one inbox. So we make it very easy. At the same time as you want to, using our appointments feature, we have the ability to confirm appointments at your specific cadence. So some practices like to start the confirmation process 2 weeks prior. And then they do a reminder 2 weeks. Then they do a confirmation a week before, 4 days before, 3 days before, whatever you want to have as your cadence. We can do that to make sure the patients are alerted to the appointments, requiring them to confirm appointments, and then reminding them 1 hour before that they have an appointment as well. Automated rather than requiring on the team to manually call everybody. People do not want to answer phones, like I said. You're going to get so many voicemails messages. So you need an easy way for the patients to say yes, they're going to be here, remind them to come to the office, and then communicate with them overall.
Yeah. And, we, at Birdeye, we've done all kinds of different studies, and we've surveyed all kinds of different customers in different industries and all that stuff. But one thing that we have found to be really consistent is that people prefer to be texted, and they prefer to have that instant messaging and that ability to quickly text a question or get their reminders right there on their phone. And that's something that we talk about no matter what industry you're in, is that you need to be able to communicate with your customers the way they want to be communicated with. And that's just all part of creating that, amazing patient experience, and so like when they're thinking about you as your practice and they're trying to decide whether or not they want to continue with you or go with somebody else, that's going to go on in their minds. Like, well, they do text me those reminders and it makes it super easy, and I can schedule appointments, no problem. And so all of that stuff adds up, and it creates that excellent, and that's what really leads to that patient retention, I imagine, is, whenever it's easy and they communicate the way that you want to be communicated with, And, having that just seamlessness probably, makes it a lot easier. Like, why would I want to go anywhere else? It's so simple here. And now, going into the next one, which we were talking about, is the complicated payment process. And so where, we talked a little bit about how the faster and that you can get them those invoices, and the easier that you can send them those invoices, the faster you get paid. But can you dive into this a little bit more and explain, why this is so important and how you can implement a better solution?
Yeah, I delved into this slightly when I introduced this process here. But if you are a heavy insurance practice where patients aren't paying necessarily in full prior to the appointment or if you're not sure what the copay is, you're a lot of times going to have patients who have copays they have to still pay. So it's difficult to actually hold on to credit cards, especially with all the security systems that are out there now. They don't want you putting credit cards on files. So there's really only a couple ways to do it. One way is to, after the patient pays their copay and the insurance pays their portion, there's sometimes a balance left over. So you're either going to call the patient on the phone; they're not going to answer. You can send them a statement, spend the money on the postage, and still hope to get paid. Or you can actually use a service like Birdeye that has a text to pay option, and it's part of the inbox. So you're literally using the phone number that the patients are messaging with you anyway. You're literally putting the payment amount that you have, what service they're having done, and you send them a text. And based on my experiences using it, patients are much faster paying this way than any other method before. So you need to make it easy for your patients to pay these copays, because you don't want your accounts receivable to get out of control. And this is a good way to control that accounts receivable to maintain. So that's a really, really easy way that I have explained to use the Birdeye payment product. Although we also, just to be clear, we also have a point of service machine. We provide you with a machine, and you can literally take payments via Apple Pay or Google Pay or all these other electronic payment forms, or the patient can simply swipe their credit card through the machine, and we collect payment away that we can collect payments that way as well, simply being a merchant services provider to dental practices.
Interesting. And so for our last pain point and the solution that we want to dive into is retaining existing patients. And I think that a lot of the stuff we had just talked about in those strategies of implementing a better online review, or an online reputation, creating, seamless communication and scheduling, and the payment process, making that easy. I think all of that helps with retaining current patients and creating a better process for them. But what are some, how else would you say retaining, what other solution would you say, or would you implement to help retain patients?
So this goes hand in hand with our appointment product, because we do have reminder campaigns, recare campaigns, letting the patients know that, one, they came in, hope they had a great visit. Two, after they're overdue, so 6 months later, they're supposed to come back for another visit. If they don't book an appointment, we alert them to let them know that they are overdue for their annual checkup or biannual checkup. But it keeps the patients or keeps the practice front of mind with the patient. So they're getting these messages, letting them know, hey, you're due, you're overdue, you're 6 weeks due. And then eventually we do reactivation as well, which if someone's gone for like a year and a half, they're almost at the point where they're not an active patient anymore. They become active in the system. So you want to really find out from patients whether they're going to come back or not to the practice. So we go through a reactivation process as well to see if the patients want to return to the practice after they've been away for a certain period of time. So by keeping you at the top of their mind through messaging, really hopefully will retain them, allow them to come back, and make it easy for them to make appointments when they do want to come back into the system.
This is probably one of my favorite things that we do, because if I had all of these services in my life that could just send me text reminders that I'm due, like my oil change or my haircuts, dental offices, yearly physicals and checkups and stuff. If I could just have, a text message arrive like, hey, it's time for you to schedule this. Here's a link. That would make my life so much easier. And I would honestly remember to do a lot of those things, because it's easy to forget whenever you're so caught up in what's going on in your everyday life. And so I think that's a massive way that you could, you help retain those patients is just by reminding them. And so, so we've gone through these pain points, and we've talked about some ways that you can implement them. And we also talked a little bit about how Birdeye does that. But one of the things that we haven't quite talked about is if you are implementing all of these strategies, that's good. But they're not easy to do. It's not easy to just, develop a brand new strong foundation of an online reputation. It's not easy to just all of a sudden launch, text messages and, to all your customers, or, integrate a full system of scheduling into your website. This stuff isn't easy. And if you're trying to do any of these things manually, that's even way harder. And, and then lastly, if you're running the practice and you want to keep it improving, you have to be able to track that stuff, because you have to understand what people are saying in their feedback of you, where are your weaknesses and your strengths, and you can't really see that unless you have that tracking. But if there are all these different systems from all these different types of tools and platforms, it's really difficult to get all of those to work together well. So, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about how Birdeye helps with that, in the sense of being able to keep it all under one platform. So what's the value in that? And so how does that play out with the practice that's utilizing Birdeye?
So Birdeye has a number of features that we have available to practices. So we have what we call our starter package. Our starter package is our reviews, listings, and messaging platform. That's one package that we've developed. We now have a Dominate package as well. The Dominate package has reviews, listings, appointments. So appointments is reminders, recare, reactivation, confirmations, and scheduling. And then we have our social media product that comes with that package. And then there's a middle package, which is listings, reviews, and appointments. So depending on what you think is going to work best for your practice, we have the options for you. But one thing we didn't talk about is our referral product, which I think is a great product. And I'll take credit for it because I asked Birdeye to build it for the dental industry. So that was kind of my baby. But our referral product is basically a message that goes out about 48 hours after a text message for review. So the review goes out 48 hours later, the referral request goes out asking that specific patient to refer their friends, family, and colleagues to you. The best part about it is we track everything. So you know who's referring who's coming in because of who, and you can not only thank the person referring, but you can welcome the person that's being referred to the practice. So we've had some great successes with that, but that is a product that we really didn't spend time talking about, but it will definitely help you acquire new patients. So we have a referral product, we have a listings and reviews product, we have a chat product. Again, we didn't go into that too much, but we have a chat product, we have an appointments product, and we have a payments product. Most of those things we covered on the webinar today.
And so where's the value in having it all under one platform versus a bunch of different tools from a bunch of different services?
So you may be saying, well, I have something that does this already. And there are a lot of competitors out there, unfortunately, in the dental industry, but you're using something for confirmation, something for payments, you're using something for reviews, hopefully Birdeye. But we can keep it all under one roof because we have one system to kind of keep track of everything. That inbox is amazing because all those messages come to one place. They don't have to check multiple places. We just make it really easy in a dashboard that is amazingly simple to use. And I love how we've simplified the process. We've made the product really, really accessible and easy for new users to understand. Rather than having to check all different places, you can check one and have all your information there that you need to know.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your insights and sharing your experience on this. So before we actually jump into our Q&A session, I want to quickly go over some of the final takeaways and some last kind of bites to take with you here in the audience before we jump off and we go into this Q&A. And so the first takeaway is, if you need to set that foundation of your online reputation in order for you to be seen online. And this helps with you acquiring new patients by setting that consistent foundation, like we were saying earlier, that doesn't go away once you stop paying for the marketing budget. Those reviews, that online reputation, that star rating, it's essentially word of mouth marketing online. It lasts and it's consistent and it gives you that foundation of success, because when someone when you are, like we said, when you're using those ads and someone clicks on the ad and they want to learn more about you, they see that you're also backed up by hundreds of awesome reviews about your practice. And that's that just kind of like that subtle subliminal like confirmation to that prospective patient that yes, this is a good practice for me to go with. And so the second takeaway that we have is offer a simple, clean digital scheduling system. Giving people the ability to schedule an appointment 24/7 at their convenience for those types of appointments that you were saying earlier, Lynn, about the emergencies and the cleanings and things like that is just so vital. And and if you're not able to have a efficient scheduling process, you could be losing out to the competition who does. And it's, as we progress, more and more businesses and practices are doing this, and they are implementing these kinds of things. And so if you haven't already, you don't want to fall behind on that side of things. And so the third one is reduce no-shows and increase patient retention with automated text reminders. And this goes back to making sure that people show up for their appointments, because if you're like me, you're gonna forget. You need to have it on your calendar and your text reminders and your phone and everything like that. Otherwise, you're gonna just miss it. And and then it's the same thing after the appointment and that patient retention and those reminders like, hey, you're due for your next cleaning, you're due for your next checkup. Those are so critical. And I can only speak for myself as a patient, in the fact that like I know that I basically rely on those. And it's so funny because I'll have people, I'll talk to someone and I'll be like, yeah, I just got back from the dentist, and they're like, oh, you actually went? You go consistently? I was like, yeah. And and they're like, props to you. And I was like, it's not me. I just have it automated, like my text. They have me schedule it, and it's good and it's easy. But there's nothing I have to do for it. And so I think that's just a massive benefit to for your loyalty and your retention, is just having those reminders. And then the fourth one is send invoices via text for faster payments from patients. Making it easier for them to pay, whether it's in the office, with a chip reader or card reader. Or being able to just simply text with a link on their phone through Apple Pay. Making it, the name of the game is make it easy for your patients to use your service, essentially. And so, I think that just is a huge contributor in that side of things. And then lastly, it's really difficult to have all these things implemented if they're separate systems or if you're doing them manually. And so, find you a solution kind of like Birdeye that allows you to manage all of this stuff from one platform. And and now actually let's go ahead and jump into our Q&A. We got a couple of questions here, and we are still accepting them. So if you do have a question here in the audience, feel free to drop it in, or just say hi. We'd love to hear from you. But let's go ahead. We've got a few here, and let's go with this one. And so the first one is and they're asking, is the text to pay feature HIPAA compliant? Or is there, I guess maybe within Birdeye, I think they might be thinking just in general, like, when you're using Birdeye to communicate with patients, is that
is the messaging feature HIPAA compliant? I think is a better question there. Yeah. So yes, our system is fully HIPAA compliant. We provide practices with what's called oh my God, it just fell out of my head. A HIPAA compliance kind of release, so we know we're a covered entity for them. But we are a HIPAA compliant platform. The whole platform, the chat, the messaging, everything is fully HIPAA compliant.
And then the next question we've got, okay. And so this one is, does Birdeye integrate with Dentrix? But I think we can actually take this and expand it and talk a little bit about just the integrations that Birdeye has within the dental industry. Can you speak to that?
So we are integrated in about 98% of the practice management softwares for our our base product, the review product. And those are Dentrix, EagleSoft, Open Dental, SoftDent, PracticeWorks, Curve, Dentrix Ascend. The list goes on and on. And a lot of the cloud-based ones, we have a way to do it as well for you. For our appointment product, our appointment product is limited to some of them. It's Dentrix, Dentrix Ascend, EagleSoft, Open Dental, PracticeWorks, Planet DDS, Curve, and a couple other ones as well. But we're more limited on where we can do for appointments than we can for review.
Okay. Yeah, and actually, this last one that we've got right here is, do reviews help you rank higher? I think this goes back to when we had briefly mentioned SEO, and this is something that I can help answer. And feel free to add to it. Reviews do help you rank higher, in the sense of the quantity of reviews that you bring in, the quality and the velocity, or so how often you receive them. Whenever Google is looking at your business profile or at your practice online, they analyze all kinds of different factors and they consider so many different things. But the main goal of what they're trying to do is provide the most relevant result to the search that was entered. And whenever you have reviews that talk about your services that use those keywords, such as, like they were quick and efficient, with my teeth cleaning, or, they're a great family dentist or great family practice, the keywords within those reviews, they do help with your SEO ranking. But just having an overall strong online presence would help even more with that. And it's not even just reviews, it's the whole process of it. But just a quick note that the responses to your reviews, so say you were to start responding to reviews, that you don't try to stuff a bunch of keywords into your responses, because Google doesn't look at those. They only look at what your customers are saying. And so, make sure to keep that in mind, is, that when you develop that strong online reputation, it does impact your ranking. And I think that might be all of the questions we've got. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Lynn, before we jump out of here today? I know we've got a couple of last minute things I'll mention before we jump off, but I wanted to open the floor up to you in case you had any final bits of advice. Actually, before we go, can you let people know where they can find you and reach out to you?
So easiest way is birdeye.com. If you want to get a demo, I'm the one I'm going to be doing the demo for you. Once you reach out to Birdeye, one of my SDRs who work for me, sales development people, will reach out, try to get you on my calendar. So that's one way. If you want to reach out to me directly, you can do Dr. Len Tao, DrLentau, Dr. Len Tao @birdeye.com is my email address. I'm super responsive. I will answer as quickly as I can. But those are the two ways to be able to reach out to me.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you look in the bio window of your webinar dashboard, I think his email should be there. And if not, you can also connect with him on LinkedIn. We made sure to provide that link there as well. And Lynn does an awesome job. He creates so much content. I love working with him just because, look at his webinar background right now. He's got the whole podcast set up. So be sure to check out his podcast within that as well. But before we go, be sure to register for our next webinar coming up in May. We're going to be talking about how this crazy wave and explosion of AI is going to impact your SEO efforts. And we're going to be doing that with a live panel of experts. It's going to be really, really intriguing. We've got some just rock star panelists, some Google experts. One of them is a Google Diamond products level expert. And I think there's only two of those people with that qualification in the country. And so we're going to be able to pick his brain on what is going on with AI and how will it impact my online marketing. And so that's going to be a great discussion. So be sure to check that out. Be sure to check out all the other related content sources that we have. And even if you click on watch the demo here on your dashboard, and then you go through and you schedule a real one with yourself, Lynn will be there. So be sure to do that as well. And with that being said, thank you all for joining. We really appreciate it. The recording will be made available. You'll get a link tomorrow in an email. So after you get that, just let us know if there's anything else that we can do for you. Feel free to email us at events@birdeye.com or directly to Len to answer any other questions you may have. But until then, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me, Justin. Appreciate it.
Yes, definitely.